Dear friends, glad to meet you all. It's Wednesday, 11th of May, 10 p.m., 3 minutes past 10, Moscow and Kiev time. Apologies for a slight delay, just happened. Day 77 with Olexiy Arestovych. Olexiy, I'm glad to see you. Likewise. As always, I'm asking those 180,000 people who are already watching us live, please share this cast. Send it in messengers, send it via any means you have to your friends, especially if they're in Russia, or states in this case, if you're watching a privateer station. Subscribe to Feygin live, to Arestovych, and to privateer station. And please leave your like, that helps others to discover this cast. Alright, any news? Olexiy, you want to share? There is a ton of news, but before I describe them, they actually also witness or pay witness to certain things. I do need to ask, how is Alexander Glebovich doing? But the sound was not too good today. He's referring to a different cast that Feygin did that same day. It was a recording, it was not live, and he was sending his hellos to you, and he recorded with some echo. Yeah, I do need to have a cast with him, probably. We actually have a birthday on the same day, and some people are laughing about our sense of humor. Alright, so coming back to our stuff, we have small signs that indicate great or grand changes. In Russia, they're replacing the head of the military command and several more generals. Is that information already in Kiev that you confirm? Yes. According to our preliminary data, Gerasimov was kicked out of his position. He is de facto, de jure, he is still in charge. Also, the commander of the 1st Tank Army, the elite Russian detachment that was planned to be the core of that attack, the core of the northern forces near Izium and Kiev. And he is not just being displaced. They actually started a criminal investigation against him, and also considering a possible accusation of treason. They're also changing the head of the main operative command, so the person who was in charge of all the details of operation. They changed the commander of 68th and the central military group of Russia. That means one very important thing. That means that it's not me, Feygin, Arestovych, or Podolyak, or Rustam Zadeh, or any of the publicists or commentators or officials of Ukraine. It is Russian government that is giving this judgment to their military personnel, to their military leaders. Basically, they all got an F. Their further destiny is pretty gloom and dark, but we don't really care about that. What else it means? This morning, there was a statement by Kremlin-placed powers or leaders of Kherson region that they've just grabbed down in the south. And they said that we'll join Russia without any referendum. Immediately after that, the speaker for Putin comes out, Peskov, and he says, no, 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 no. Only after people state their decision. If you do the proper procedural, if you do the proper procedure, what is behind that? There is a fight in Kherson behind the curtains between FSB, the Russian FSB, and Russian military intelligence. They're pretty much shooting at each other at this point. So DNR was given to FSB, LNR was given to GRU, and that was one of the questions that very few people asked. Why did they need to separate the territories they grabbed into two republics? pseudo-republics, because they basically put different groups of their service people, secret service and stuff over them. So FSB, Federal Service of Security, and the other one was managed by GRU, Main Intelligence Department. So apparently they are really fighting with each other. And despite the fact that the fight is not over, they really wanted to push to create something to confirm that this region is ready to join Russia, and that's what the guys came out and said. And I was looking forward to Kremlin's reaction, because if they confirm, that'll be their program. If not, then there's a different scenario. It actually shows that there is a ban on certain escalation, because if they announce annexation of that territory, the whole situation escalates further. Ukraine may start getting more weapons, more support, Russia getting more condemnation throughout the world for doing that. So with this thesis, antithesis, I'm doing a synthesis out of it. It appears that Kremlin management, Kremlin military command started to plan their military operations according to their capabilities. As we discussed before, their previous actions were defined by their political aspirations. That was idiocy number one. This is somewhat a Soviet-style leadership. Like back in the day, they were calculating and saying, we need to get to La Manche in 2 weeks if there is a war. And the military support would look at that and say, okay, we need, let's say, 60 tanks to get there. So they refuse, or 6,000 tanks. They take the money from people, from different types of production, and throw everything into tanks. NATO side is different. They're basically saying, okay, that's how much we have, let's see what we can do with it. So, right now, at least, we start to see that there is some changes in the Russian approach. And in our Ukrainian side, it always has been, or especially after recent wars, there's been an approach that we need to look what we possibly can do, what possible resources we have, and then we start playing with these resources, try to make the best scenario out of it. And it seems like that Russia is really going through that learning curve pretty rapidly right now. So they're trying to marry their capabilities with the aspirations. They're still trying to do some movement in the east, and it's there's a funny thing there that they already announced that they reached to the border, and they have not. And it also appears down south they've been jumping the gun and saying that they're all good and ready to join Russia, because they're basically trying to state that, hey, we're good, don't replace our generals, don't fire them, don't throw them in jail, we're doing good on these directions. And this degree of lies is a sort of brand of any centralized system, because the top management wants to push for certain goals, and the mid and bottom management wants to save their asses. So that's what they're doing. And as long as they can ride along, maybe eventually either the boss will die or get replaced, or something will change. So it's really their survivorship technique. And that is what Putin mentioned in his speech on the 9th of May, that he's not supporting we don't need a global nuclear war, we need to keep the peace in the world. And he wasn't even mentioning reaching the borders of those territories. So right now we see that they're switching their goals into, let's maybe reach the borders of Lugansk, Donetsk, and keep them and just go into that long-term power struggle over that border. That tells me that there is a definite struggle of bulldogs under the carpet happening, and there are different. Another notion that there was another wave of governors that were also kicked out of their positions on the 9th of May, and the Central Command, military command, was reorganized on that day. That explains why Gerasimov, the head of command, Russian command, was not on the 9th of May parade. Another interesting moment, Xi Jinping, Chinese leader, made a statement that says China respects territorial integrity of Ukraine, and he thinks that everything needs to be resolved in diplomatic manner. And I need to remind you here that territorial integrity of Ukraine includes Crimea, Donbass, and Lugansk. So Chinese leader usually does not throw words in vain, so that statement was measured. That means the Chinese government did its own homework and consulted experts, and pretty much came to conclusion that at the end of this war, Ukraine has a potential to recapture its whole territory. Similar statement is made by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dmitry Kuleba, in Ukraine. And yes, before we were stating that Crimea and Donbass should be done politically. At the same time, right now we're looking at our capabilities and the changing trends. We are considering that we might take them back militarily. So that pretty much looks like a strategic change, strategic break of situation. I already announced 2 others before when things were happening. So this is, let's call it a third strategic change. So what we expect, there probably will be some distraction activity in Kherson in the south, southeast. And even near Izum, all the fighting pretty much went to them crawling a little further to one village and trying to cover themselves there from our artillery, but we're polishing them pretty well. Today there was another episode. Russian airplane hit ammonia containers, and some of our troops had symptoms of chemical side effects of ammonia in the air. Some people screamed that it was a chemical weapon used. No, it wasn't. And Russia just violated another term of war fighting by hitting chemical targets that were not military. So this is the, and by the way, that did cause some condemnation on the American side in Europe. So this is our operational background. Kremlin reassessed their situation. Chinese declared their views. Chinese actually do not like the ones who lose. They also do not like the ones who lie and then lose, like Putin did. We have 370,000 people watching us. By the way, Nevzorov told you that they took off 5 governors in Russia, right? Yeah, this is a public information. We were discussing this morning, those 5 governors. There are 2 movements there, as we see. On one hand, they're trying to make system harder with new people. On the other hand, these governors were kind of happy to leave. It's basically, I'm not responsible for things, I'm glad to leave now, I'm good. This is illusion still, because they are responsible for what they've done, but yeah, it is a temporary relief for those figures. Another notion that we observed was that Putin keeps stating that they're helping DNR and LNR, those fake republics. But at the same time, there are no extreme conversations about demilitarization, denazification, that DNR and LNR are fighting on their land, that we're fighting against America and NATO on this territory, that Ukrainian military are all Nazis and drug abusers. So that's noticeable. It is his rhetoric is changing, even for the internal. So another thing we should discuss: did the Ukrainian military get to the borders with Kharkov? To the borders in the Kharkov direction? Yeah, they did, and they actually did reach the border in some parts. So the Russians are moving their troops from there to the main attack, to Luganskaya direction, Popasna, Rubezhne, Lysychansk, and Severodonetsk.
Часть это заменили мобилизованными из ДНР, ЛНР, так называемых, да, и там.
And some of them were replaced with fighters from DNR and LNR who are really poorly trained. So we took some prisoners of war. And at the same time, the border is murky at that area. Russian troops are shooting Ukrainian side from across the border, from Russia. So us being on the border is really a symbolical thing. It doesn't mean that much because we might actually find Russians crossing the border again, or we may do a tactical cross to get rid of some artillery units there. So there'll be some counter activity. We did push Russians away from Kharkov, so now it's only reactive systems that can reach that, reactive missiles. Artillery is not capable of reaching Kharkov, so we're making it a bit safer. Does it mean that since they've basically surrendered that direction, they're throwing forces to Lugansk? Yes, that's what it looks like. They're starting to connect their political aspirations to their military capabilities. This is, I want to voice it out, a hypothesis of strategical change, the switch to positional fighting and some remnants of offensive on the main directions of front, attempting to gather to get to the borders of those regions. Anything happening in the south? Well, they're fighting, but that's fighting between SBU and FSB and GRU. So they're really fighting between each other, trying to divide and conquer that Kherson territory. We just don't have much powers in the south. We're not too strong there, so they have not really dug in there. If we had a little bit more power, we probably would have kicked them out already. But at the end, it'll be Ukrainian soldiers resolving it. So all that here and R will be dissolved. Okay, let's talk about the heavy things. Mariupol again. First of all, objectively, situation there is very difficult, and it becomes even more and more public. Today, the Pope in Rome met with two wives of people fighting in Azov battalion there in the tunnels of Azov Steel in Mariupol. But even on my channel, there are a lot of people trying to reach and send data. Most people are appealing to the same direction. Let's find somebody who can talk to Putin and convince him that he needs to let soldiers and wounded go through the humanitarian channel. It's just I don't see a future with that. He's a cannibal who will try to eat them all, and he would not give a flying F about anything happening there. What do you think about that? Do you think diplomatic efforts can still give us any fruit? Right before our cast, Irina Vereshchuk, our humanitarian emissary, did state that we offered a possibility where seriously wounded are being transferred through the humanitarian corridor, and war fighters are being extradited to a third country. And what does Russia get in return? We give them their prisoners of war. All of them? Yeah, I suspect all, or whatever they ask. Probably all. Situation is really out of control. My wife and myself are already getting threats for the second day who present themselves to be relatives and wives of Azov battalion warfighters. They're telling us, I'll bring screens tomorrow, but yeah, they're basically saying that we'll be executed after the war for the war crimes. And can you check if that's their wives? That's how they represent themselves. We'll see. And yeah, that we'll be executed because we are sitting in Kiev and doing nothing about them. I do need to remind them that besides Azov, there is police, there are bordermen, there is court, there is territorial defense and defenders of Mariupol, and their relatives are not writing anyone anything. So come down. I'm not meaning the real wives and relatives of Azov battalion, because right now it's very critical for them, who are probably in a state of despair about their relatives, and they're going on a wild swing between a hope and total despair daily, many times. But I'm addressing those who are writing that do not do that. Stop that scream. Just give it a thought that my godson is there in Mariupol. And now a question: can we want him to die there and get in Russian or get captured by Russians there? And also, the whole office has relatives there or friends. So playing that dirty game will not work. We are fighting, we keep fighting, and even if a certain warfighter makes a statement that he promises to finish me, my wife, or my kids, I'm still fighting to get him out of that place, because the threat made by a person in extreme conditions is one thing. The duty of powers to do whatever possible to get them out of there is another. I'm always amazed by that substitution of goals. They want to execute, but not Putin. All of a sudden, they're switching it to the local targets. The exact enemy is far out there, so he's kind of unachievable, unreachable, and they're attacking people, whoever they can reach. I'm remembering when I was defending some of the Ukrainians in the political issues, in political cases, and since people could not reach Putin, they could attack the office of the president or some Ukrainian powers because they were closer. But it always came back to, you need to realize that the problem is not with people whom you can reach, the problem is with people who are responsible indeed. And as you qualified that, that's right, it's political technology, it's not the real problem. There are politicians who are speculating on the grief of close people to the ones that are resisting in the Azov steel. And their relatives, many of them, are almost out of their mind from grief, and agitation, so I can understand everything about the fighters and about their relatives who can curse me 7 ways to Sunday and promise to kill me. I understand they've been fighting there for 70 days. But those people who are trying to score political points on that situation, just give it a thought about how it will end for you after this situation is over. We're fighting to rescue the soldiers, to find ways to calm down the relatives. But those guys who are just making political points on this will deal with you later.
Так, нас смотрят почти 435 тысяч человек. Те, кто подтянулись, может быть, вы не к началу.
We have over 400,000 people watching us. Those who came a bit later, please, again, do not forget to share these links with your friends, especially if your friends are in Russia. Again, English version, share it with your friends in States, especially the ones who are skeptical about the situation, not aware of what's happening. And subscribe to Privateer Station. And leave your likes, because that does help the data to get promoted by YouTube algorithms. Alright, let's go back to $40 billion. Some people commented that your voice was very upset about American funds coming at the end of May, and now, oops, we already have 40 billion. They added another 7 billion to that amount and signed that into action. So a question, do you think that can expedite the start of more weaponry coming in? It did expedite it as much as there is a difference between the vote and the signing that happened today versus the end of May. So at least 2 to 3 weeks. That is good. We'll take that. In that situation, you never know which day is a key day, which straw is the last one that will break the camel's back. Every war is the fight for leadership. So any opportunity to expedite it by a second or two, it's already important. And here we got a couple weeks. So I will note here that possibly, just possibly, that Moscow is starting to change its attitude, taking in mind that all these events in the world are happening, that they will be facing several times more deadly situation for their troops on the front, because instead of one, there'll be 2 or 3 dying, and the scale of that event. And another thing, yeah, we have to keep in mind that, maybe they have to keep in mind that we'll initiate counteroffensive. And, you know, yeah, what if there'll be some unexpected events? They don't know where counteroffense may start. Maybe somewhere where it's really not expected, and Moscow appears to be trying to step away into the positional struggle to not lose what they have conquered. Is that what you think? Yeah, I said pretty much about that, just in different words at the beginning. And I think everything matters in that situation, because they do understand there is no way for them to win versus Lend-Lease. So the end is rather clear. They understood that yeah, they're trying not to use the cuss words, but that it's really a foobar for them. On the field, a complete military defeat. That is what's going to happen. Not by score, not because public saw it this way, not because media reported that. It'll be a very clean military defeat. So they have to start doing something, and they got an illusion that if they get to the border of Lugansk, declare it a victory, and start accumulating reserves, regardless though how they accumulate their reserves, they will not be able to overcome the support provided by Lend-Lease. Generally, Ukraine budget versus Russian budget is 1:16 normally, but now with all the support of 40 countries that are supporting us, it almost flips around to like 1:100 in our favor.
И возникает вопрос, то есть раньше, чем через месяц, возникает вопрос относительно того,
And there is also another open question with that coalition, that a month from now there could be more ministers, more than 40 in that coalition. Just look at Germany, how far did they go? At first they said no, and then now they're talking about giving 100 martyrs to us. If that's 2 brigades, if you add Panzer howitzers and aerial unmanned aerial vehicles, Polish tanks, more systems, because right now our fight are very formal. There are numbers of battalion tactical groups, but each of them essentially is a third or a half of what it should be, because they're all lost a lot of people and were not refreshed. And now imagine our side getting all that weaponry, and if we get full 3 mechanized brigades that we manage to staff with people and all that equipment, that will be the end to everything on their side. And that is where it's going to. And they start to understand that. So they're trying to promote commanders who are a bit more actual and who are setting the goals that are possible, or at least somewhat possible, for achievement. So that's what I said. I'm seeing them trying to get to the borders and starting extreme negotiations with the whole world about their position, because they realize that it's their only option. It's a peace treaty or a military defeat. So a question will be about the terms. And yeah, the Ukraine will be dictating that, and the more help we get, the stronger our voice will be. But there is another question. We are not too excited about even doing any negotiations at the moment. And that's what they're accusing us of, that awful Ukraine does not even want to talk to us. Yeah, the guy who is an ambassador from DNR in Russia was upset and ravaging that Ukraine does not care about Russia, does not talk to Russia, and doesn't even notice our republics. And our diplomatic leader, Kuleba, who is a diplomat, he is very gentle usually. He's not even using phrases that I use. So when Kuleba comes out and states on from his diplomatic pulpit that we'll probably use military force to free those republics, that translates position of the president of the country and impresses a very hard perspective on the opponent's side. So that really means we'll be destroying their military. The head of the office is basically conveying to the invaders that our task is to cleanse the whole territory of the invaders. So we'll see what's happening. We have 465,000 people watching us. Dear friends, you know what I'm usually say. But one of the main things, Mark, is China. China is supporting our full territorial integrity. That is important. That is meaningful. A lot of people are mentioning that in chat. It appears that they're just fortifying their previous position. They've been pretty much saying the same before, but it was in a much gentler way. In some parts it was done through behavior, that when they were politely refusing some requests. So China is interested in itself, first of all. And you're absolutely right that they will be supporting the winner. Moscow is not looking like a winner. for a long time already, and it is silly to hope for any meaningful change in the front. There is no reason for the front to change. Chinese problem is that they deceived it. They deceived China both about the scale of the campaign and about the probability of
молниеносно захватят или, скорее всего, будет там
success.
на востоке, где ВСУ окружат, разгромят и принудят к Минску-3.
And they were hoping that they can make Ukraine sign treaties, disarm, and become a puppet. And they have not achieved anything, neither on scale of attack, scale of achievement, or anything that they intended initially to do. So, in the world of China, that should mean some serious punishment to who behaved like that, who failed the country like that. So one of the things that people are considering that China maybe was hoping to capture Taiwan if Moscow would be successful over in Ukraine. It is hard to gauge. Perhaps they had some plans based on what's happening in Europe between Russia and Ukraine. But then when it all went to hell in a handbasket, China decided to change their position. And I suspect they're in a stage of sharp dissatisfaction with Putin and his regime. All right, so we're trending to the end of the show. We've been almost 36 minutes live. So, talking about European Union,
мы с тобой начинали когда-то, когда эта инициатива только появилась, и в острую фазу войны, начальную фазу, даже
even in the first phase of war, when many things were not clear, you're already describing certain things. And Macron back in the day also made a lot of statements about weapons, about heavy weaponry, or about fighting with Russia. And now it doesn't quite look how it was stated 2.5 months ago, even on the European side. So what do you think? If the whole process expedites, I'm not even talking about the membership in the European Union itself, but at least, initiating the procedures, going on with signatures, and whatever steps are necessary. So do you think that has any effect on Moscow? Because fighting with a member of EU is a psyche proposition? Yeah, the goal is to limit their political space for maneuver. So connections between Russia and Europe were always pretty tight. So one thing that they thought they can capture one country in Europe by either annexation or splitting into several republics, that was a miscalculation. That was a gross miscalculation for Russia. So even on the military side, they cannot announce that they're fighting the country which is a member of the European Union, even if it's not NATO, even if it's a standalone country that's a part of a union. That proposition doesn't sound good for them. It places Moscow in a very difficult political perspective when you need to explain why Ukraine is not worthy of European Union, and Russia would have to explain two different things. Internally, to explain why they're fighting with the European Union, and externally, why they're fighting with somebody who wants to join the European Union. These problems cause a lot of issues, from rhetoric to diplomacy to possible military solutions. Or imagine a phrase, nuclear strike on the member of European Union or a candidate to the European Union. Do you think that
Ты считаешь, она бы остановилась от того?
legality would preclude him from waging a
Просто в
war?
тот же день бы остановилась.
I suspect it would.
А тут же момент какой, что мы прямо об этом говорили.
And, you know, these days, most people are trying to be diplomatic, but both Michael Podolyak and Kuleba did state their opinion that tens of thousands of Ukrainians spilled their blood here not to be tricked here. And you cannot be telling us that the day after tomorrow you'll be accepted into EU, and now there may be a pushback. So Ukraine is taking a hard position, basically saying, you know, we are fighting to be part of European Union. And that is why you can also see European effort to try to talk Ukraine to a situation like Minsk III, and perhaps go for some diplomatic treaty with Russia. But as you've seen our officials stating today, there will not be any Minsk III. Thankfully, this war did highlight the problems of the previous agreement that were weak and that basically led to the current war because they were unachievable from the get-go. And 2 Minsks have disappeared already, and the third will not happen. There is no way for it to happen. All right, we are 41 minutes live. We will continue our conversation tomorrow, with your permission, right? Yes. Another meaningful information. We managed to sell a few things on non-fungible token market. And we decided the nurse from Lysychansk who lost her legs and a part of hand, her name was Oksana Balandina. Is it the one whose husband was carrying her and dancing with her in a hospital because she could not walk? Yeah, that's the one. So she's married to him now, and she's in Lvov. We sincerely hope they'll have a good family and will have kids and everything will be good. So please help us transfer some funds to that family. Many people are listening to us. Those people who are listening, I'm sure somebody has her contacts. Please send that info to us or to Olexiy, and we'll find a way to transfer the resources to you. And these resources will be also basically blessed by all the people watching us, hundreds of thousands of people who are wishing you wealth, health, and supporting you. So I hope that'll mean something. And we do have those accounts available. Please inquire. And also, if you have things to offer to NFT auctions, please reach out. We shall put them, and all the funds raised will be transferred to people who may use it. Thank you, everybody. We'll have another tomorrow. Thank you.
Спасибо всем за внимание.